Merry meet. It's me, Rowan. Happy Thursday. Tonight's spiritual panel is dispelling the stereotypes of spirits. So this will be kind of a fun panel tonight. It is open panel. So those who are new, if you've worked psychopomp, necromancy, or any kind of your beliefs on spirits, that's really what we're doing. So, all right, I'm gonna do a couple shares on spirits. That's really what we're doing. So, all right, I'm gonna do a couple shares here. Do a couple shares here. Welcome, Bren.
Oh boy, I'm so excited for this topic. I'm so excited because I'm going to throw a lot of monkey wrenches in people's perspectives.
Right? I know this one's going to be fun. It's going to be super fun. So, welcome to everybody. I want to encourage everybody to please at least give us hearts because that will bump us up in the algorithm. And we can have more amazing conversations, which is kind of nice.
Yes. So, the topic at hand is the dispelling of spiritual stereotypes regarding spirits. So, what the heck do I mean by a stereotype? A spiritual stereotype? Well, oh, it's an angelic. It must be divine. It must be supportive. It must be righteous. Okay. Oh, something's demonic. Oh, that's evil. That is blaspheming. No. No. Probably the best jumping off point is that when we think of a spiritual stereotype, when we hear these words, we're automatically primed to think something that is, like for example, demonic. The first thing we think of is something that is ill-intended, with the idea that it only has the desire to cause some kind of harm in some form or way. But at the same time, though, when we take a look over on the other side, like with the angelic, what about that time when Archangel Miguel incinerated a girl and made her the Anima Sola? That wasn't dignified. Oh. So, as you can see, both can cause unjust, unrightful harm. It is still harm. So we can have destruction come from one side, but then at the same time destruction on the other. One can act out of lack of control equally. So when we are trying to distinguish what is, I don't even like using the word righteous and profane. I don't like using that. We have to also primarily take a look at ourselves first and understanding how do we correspond and what do we resonate towards and affiliate with at the personal level. Because when we have somebody say, well, I only work with the Inferno, okay, or he works with the demonic spirits, okay, nothing wrong with that. And that's just what they resonate towards. That's their, by saying that again, that's their light. That one makes them feel in their own element. While, like, say, somebody who is, like, say, they practice, like, the traditional judicial ways in Judaism, like the Kabbalah and whatnot, they go over and then they see Lilith and they think, oh, Lord, that is a monstrosity. Again, that's just what they're affiliated to. However, when you have that, because even like even in the Goetia, there are some goetic spirits that are rather protective of humans. Like, for example, Prince Oribas. He is known to be horse-headed, and he is renowned for being so hyper-protective of whomever summons him from any spirit, even another poetic spirit. He's that protective. So it all like trickles down to how does the self connect to the spiritual entity? Because everybody's going to be completely different.
Yes.
Like you have to
One thing I've noticed, like, because one of the things is that people think that any spirit is going to haunt them and cause havoc, which is very curious. And I can see that from doing cemetery tours and actually also doing like tours in haunted buildings, that a lot of people really think that. So it is really fascinating to see that not everything is like Amityville. Not everything is like the Conjuring house. There are going to be some that will be a little scary. Like I would never go to let's see, how would we do this? The Unalive Axe House that's located in Iowa, because that one is a kind of there's limits.
I think there's another place that's called what's it called? What is it called? Plymouth Plantation down. I think it's in Louisiana. Oh Lord, no! Lots of that freaky. Ooh.
My boss with the cemetery tour company, he went down there.
Oh, I bet you he didn't last. I bet you he got mortified.
He had some interesting experiences, but it was funny because like the people who are mediums that work for him, nobody wanted to go. It was no.
I mean, it's Plymouth Plantation where it's just like down in the whoa.
Yeah. Welcome, Azrael.
Debbie's here.
He's probably. I think this is his busy day, but welcome. Welcome, Guru. I see you in the chat. Welcome, everybody. Tonight we are talking about dispelling stereotypes of spirits. So we are very excited about this. This is a fun topic in the spiritual community because, yes, a lot of us do psychopomp work, necromancy, spiritual work. So this is really fun to be able to have that discussion.
And that actually does also kind of want me to segue into another very important perspective is that, now, when we are speaking towards, like, say, for an example, well, in the Vedic tradition, like how there is Ma Kali as an example, and Ma Nitri, by stereotype, people would think, well, that is demonic. No. She is a Devi, which is the closest that we can get to the term for goddess. The closest we can get, but it's not exactly the same. And every Devi and every Deva has their specific role that they play. And it is all necessary, because if one of them was not present, everything would go off balance. So in that regard, to an individual, Ma Kali is their life, their shelter, and where they find their spiritual ashram and their devoted focus. While you might have another individual be more drawn to Ma Lakshmi. It is still what they're being drawn and resonant towards. You could even also say, even towards, say, Ma Saraswati. And that really depends solely on the individual. But calling something demonic that you don't understand or something that you're not familiar with, that's just chosen ignorance and chosen stupidity. That's just me.
Well, thank you, Azrael, for letting Guru know. Because yes, Guru, it is open panel. Feel free to request if you want to come up and join us. You know what, Brent? I think it's amazing how many people can misinterpret things and just think everything is evil and bad. I was actually watching, I think it was yesterday, I was watching a YouTube channel, and the girl there was They were talking about, I can't remember what I was watching about, but I was like, oh, I'm not watching this person ever again, because they were talking about somebody who reads tarot. And she said, tarot is of the devil. It is evil. Anybody who reads tarot should be in jail, and like was going on and on. And I'm like, wow, won't ever be watching anything you do again. Because it's like, the funny thing is a lot of the people that do that, they go to fortune tellers all the time. They may not be tarot readers, but they go to psychics. So it's like, it's the same thing. So, again, we are going to dispel stereotypes of spirits, but there's a lot of stereotypes out there for the spiritual community with different beliefs. And I think the most important thing we need to think about is, are you open-minded? So if you practice paganism, are you going to be open-minded to Judaism and Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism and Christianity? And it goes for any religious or spiritual aspect, because if you're closed-minded, you are going to embrace these stereotypes and attack people, and it's not okay. Guru, I like this. It's improper information regarding anything that's energy and lack of education. Yes, it is. And it shows a lack of education if people are going to be throwing it out there and not educating themselves.
And one of the big things, in speaking of that, like for an example, there is, and this kind of makes me just get annoyed and agitated, there is, for some reason, I don't know, a group of people that are considering that Ma Kali can be canonized as a saint. And now I hear that and I think, what are you doing? You cannot do that. You're bastardizing the whole thing. Leave Ma Kali as she is. You don't canonize her in a different. No. Now that is trying to take something that's been established and mold it to somebody else's liking, rather than honor it at its core. You cannot take something that has been established and has been just a part of existence of another belief and faith system, and then twist it and manipulate it into something that's going to make you comfortable. Because you cannot twist something that, you cannot twist for other people's comfort in that regard.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And that's also a big, huge sign of disrespect to the whole culture and the whole belief system as a whole, twisting it so you're comfy. Sometimes the belief doesn't want you, or doesn't care if you're comfy or not. It's just, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, it's definitely, we have to be open. And I also think we need to be respectful. That's like one thing, because a lot of people like will watch, I'm blanking on his name, Zach Baggins. There we go. I didn't blank on his name. He's got like it's in Vegas. He's got his museum where he's got all these haunted.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
That
guy.
So, when he's like, for his TV show, he's intentionally aggravating the spirits so that they'll do something. Well, if you are face to face with a person and you start to insult them, like you tell them to F off, or I'm going to punch you or whatever, you are starting a problem. Or if you like scream in their ear, you're literally starting a problem in a situation. And when you can't see the spirit, you don't know what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, they might just they might do something simple that you won't realize for a couple days. Or they might trip you or throw you against a wall, especially if they're stronger and older, because like the longer they've been passed, the stronger they are to be able to actually communicate with us here in this realm.
And I also do want to kind of also put that out there, because yes, when you're bringing in a collection of like say haunted items or things like that, little do people know that a lot of those items need to be stored in a way where it is safe and they're secure. Because as far as we know, if something is deeply haunted, it can pose a risk. And even to that too, if you're bringing something in to your home and environment Well, maybe you should just stop and take a few steps back and kind of see if you can connect with that spirit that's linked to that and ask it if it wants to go in there or where it wants to go first.
Yeah.
If it's in your possession, now, in a way, it's like you're now responsible on how you handle that. And now, if you go at it in a way where you're inconsiderate, well, I mean, something simple. Just be considerate and mindful, saying, okay, so I feel that there's something attached to this. Oh, it's demonic. No. So I need to figure out, okay, how can I communicate with whatever's attached to this to inform them what's going on and then give them a say? Because when you give something its voice, it's like a partnership. And if especially, like, say, if you're in a home that you just moved in and there's a spirit attached or there's an entity somewhere within the home, it's like you're stepping in and now you have to inform, like, because this spirit or entity that's attached may have been attached to this building for a longer time than you've been standing on your feet, or even longer. So now it's like you're stepping into their home on the physical, but now you're still in their home on the spiritual. Like, this is where they reside. So it's going towards them in a way saying, well, I'm just moving in. I am perfectly aware that you most definitely are still in the house. And I just want to work together with you so that way both of us are happy. And that is sometimes usually so very simple to do, but people overlook it. They think, oh, my house is haunted. Oh, Lord, it just got rubber. No. If something is happening, sometimes the most simplest thing to do and easiest thing to do is to just try and get that contact and allow it to be heard. And not trying to drive it out and trying to be more pushy with it. Sometimes it's just giving it its voice and then asking for that partnership to work together to have both parties happy in it.
Yes.
Because for them, on the physical, they don't get a say most of the time. So,
Yeah, and a lot of times, when I go do house cleansings, sometimes it's a spirit that lived in the house before or lived on the property before. And it's something as simple as, you don't live here anymore. We know you lived here at one point. Can you leave the inside of the house? I mean, I have several spirits that were in my house that I just asked if they could be in the yard. I was like, I need to have a place that is my sanctuary. And they understood it. And I had that conversation. I helped one person cross over. But I mean, it's like it's just having the conversation, and people get scared of that. And instead of having that conversation, that's where, like, people do exorcisms and seances and, and sometimes that makes things worse.
yep, and I mean, now truth be told, and this is also another thing, speaking of exorcisms, that sometimes gets me a little bit like, do you even realize what you're saying? Because there are some people that have gone around saying, well, I cast what's that called? It's like I cast, like doing an exorcism on someone just completely random, just a random person saying, I banish thee in the name of the Lord Jesus, banish. No. And furthermore, when you kind of do something like that, it just kind of shows how much some people don't know. Because if we're going to be going by technicality, if we're going to go at it that route by going with the stereotype role, well, for one thing, you have to get the approval of the church. It has to go through the whole process. It has to get that approval. Plus, there has to be certain procedures that have to be done in a certain way. And they have to be followed by the T. If they're not, then it probably is not going to go as planned. And there are even other cultures that do have their own way of doing exorcisms, but I can't speak on any of those because, well, for one, I haven't done any exorcisms that are of other cultures. So,
Yeah, and the exorcism is also for possession. I mean, you can get them to leave your house. I don't know if you necessarily. I just call it spiritual removal. And I do like this comment a guru has. Some people think that by having that conversation in a correct mind, You know what? That's another society stereotype, where it's like, oh, they're hearing voices. And it's like, sorry, some people are gifted with clear abilities and we have no control over it. We have to hide until we feel comfortable coming out.
Yeah, and a lot of people now, there are also, well, I mean, because, well, there are some people, now again, when I'm saying this, don't be thinking that, oh, so somebody has these conditions that it's okay, and that whatever they're saying is just it has to go with it. No, 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 no. Hold on. There are some cultures, I'm trying to remember which ones exactly, but they had their place in the society. Like, for example, I'm thinking it was, oh, what was it? Crap. It was it was a tribe of people that was home. Ah, crap, I can't remember. But this tribe of people actually had these people that had this ability to see beyond what the everyday man can see. Someone like you could. Well, I don't even want to use the word shaman because that might be going a little too close to the edge of the whoopsie land. But somebody who is like a medicine man or having that capacity to see what the everyday person can't see, and they were used to, well, not used, but they had their role to be like the channeling and being able to relay messages as like a form of, like, say, divination or communication. They had their place, but as time went on, now society's thinking that, oh, they've just gone mad. No, why are we thinking that they're just this insane person? Instead, why don't we just give them the space and let them speak and just allow it to come out. Mm-hmm. Let them speak it and not take it so literally and try to give them that space, because as far as we know, they might be saying something in a symbolic way, and then when we get that, we can decode it as a message.
Yes.
But that's my business.
Yes, and sometimes a stranger spirit might be connecting with you through a loved one.
Yes, I've had that happen with mine. Oh,
yeah. So it's always good to be open and realize that just like the majority of the people alive right now on Earth have good hearts or are good people and are going to do something good, it's the same thing with spirits.
Mm-hmm. And in speaking of that, me personally, like the perspective that I have, and I mean, I'm kind of a bit of a stickler with this one. I'm somebody that does have this perspective that every spirit, regardless of what affiliation it has, it should have the right to at least be given the chance to be heard. And if you give it that opportunity to be heard, if it doesn't connect with you, if it just doesn't feel right, you don't have to accept anything that comes towards you ever, and you can always dismiss it. But if you give it the chance to be heard, then you have that chance for possibly something more deeper to form. But at the same time, of course, always having to ensure that your safety and well-being is above everything else. Because you might bring in something that you may regret, of course. It happens. It happens to everybody. Everybody makes whoopsies. But when you're, again, like in the beginning, if you're not open to give something the chance to learn from, you can't really advance anywhere.
Azrael, I know you're probably busy, but did you want to add anything? I don't want you to think we forgot about you.
No, no, I'm here. I'm listening in. And as a matter of fact, you had some good timing because I was still leaving downtown and my Bluetooth was making all this hissing sound because all the frequencies downtown with all the buildings. But yeah, I just want to like what Brenda's saying and as well as yourself is, you don't want to entertain spirits or these things that you can work with if you don't know what they are or how to put them, allow them to return to where they're from, and a lot of individuals are born, with the gift of awareness and being able to tap into that. But just like anything else, you have to use your knowledge, your understanding of it, because you can open up a can of worms, and you don't know what to do with it, and now you're dealing with a circumstance that might be way beyond your ability. So learn what you're doing, observe. If this is something that the individual finds that they want to delve into, and be able to work with, let's call it spirits and entities. And when I say entities, it could be any of those in that aspects. So have awareness and knowledge. And there was something stated in the comments as well, what you guys are also saying. A lot of people in this age of technology, they assume by reading a couple phrases they know everything, and it's not good to try to let's say having a seance and trying to call upon spirits if you don't even know. Hearsay is a lot of hearsay out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that we see, we can observe and know that most of it is not true. And I guess they call it new age spirituality is misleading in many sense when some of the individuals are not experienced. You have a lot of individuals that only been in this world for 2 decades, and they assume they know more than others, which they might. They might be gifted, but in actuality, from one spectrum to the next spectrum, when you're dealing with one form of occult to a next level of the occult, there's different aspects. There's a lot of people that have spent many years, generations, and been taught by elders, and that they walked those paths and seen it. So it's allowing yourself to learn, and don't entertain it. Don't assume you're an electrician because you picked up a book and it told you how to do this and that. In the same way, don't think you'll be able to control something that's been around longer than you are.
Right.
Ancient, and many of them are ancient souls that learn how to be deceivers. And if you give it energy, that's what they need. That's all they need to be able to exist in any place. So if you're giving it that energy, it's like you opening up a portal that you cannot close because you don't know. So it's the awareness, and I appreciate both you and Brent, Rowan, being able to share what you're sharing, because this is stuff that is needed. I have work with spirits, and as you know, but I don't, it's not my cup of tea. Like I said, I'm aware, I know it's there, but at the end of the day, I use very good judgment on what I'm dealing with. If I don't protect myself and I don't do specific things, I could bring upon these things, and they might not be attached to me. They could be attached to the next individual around me, somebody that might be not aware, somebody that. The thing about it, we could become the vessel, and not the vessel itself, but the person that they could hitchhike on, on our shoulders, on our backs, follow us, and say, you know what, that other person there is weak. That person is used to substance abuse and so forth and so forth, and they're weak. And it's easy for them to actually overcome that individual and utilize that individual for what to, allow the individual to receive what the individual wants, but in the same way, it's becoming more and more. Is it called benevolent? I can't say the word right now. Evil,
Benevolent
bad.
is nice, and malevolent is
Yeah, yeah.
the opposite.
Well, yeah. So I want to listen in a little bit more, and and I'll chime in when I can. And I appreciate you guys, for sharing what you're sharing. And also, Guru, it's open panel, so you can request and share your perspective as well,
Yes.
because I know you have knowledge on this stuff.
Yes, we love open panel. So please request if you want to jump up and talk about this. We're talking about dispelling the stereotypes of spirits. And there was a word you brought up, Azrael, that I wanted to control. The only thing we can control is ourselves. So people who think, oh, I'm gonna get this spirit to, make the elevator go up and down, not gonna happen. Like, they're going to get mad. It's just like when you control somebody, they're going to get mad. They're going to get sad. They may, get a restraining order. I mean, you never know what will happen. So you want to go into that thinking the only thing you can control is yourself and control how you put yourself in a situation. So, like, for example, I'm going to use this. This was a great example. So I had a girl on one of the cemetery tours, and we're on the tour, and she loved watching Zach's show that we talked about earlier. Loved it. So she thought the way he works with spirits is how you should work with spirits. And, at the beginning of these tours, we kind of, tell everybody, you've got safe place, da, 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 da. She had on her phone a phantom box. And if you've ever seen these, really cool. Like I have Ghost, I think it's like Ghost Talk. Yeah, all of a sudden I was forgetting the name. Thank you, Bren. But there's also, you can download different phantom boxes instead of buying the huge ones that a lot of the paranormal investigators have. And so she had one on her phone, and she was actually aggravating the spirit. She was doing what she had learned from television. And the spirits were actually communicating with me through the phantom box, asking me to tell her to stop. Now, I was telling her to stop before the spirits started doing it. But then she was like, they want me to stop? I'm like, yes, like I've been telling you. And I literally I just told the group just a second, walked away, and I told the spirits, hey, look, I can't get her to stop. I'm so sorry. I'm doing the best I can. And I finally said, please turn off your phantom box, because the spirits were getting very, very irritated. So I continue on the tour with the rest of the tour group and her. And as we're going, so we had that particular night, we had 2 tour groups going, and we were meeting in one place to go inside of this chapel. Azrael, you've been there. You know where I'm talking. You know which cemetery. But
I just passed it up like 2 minutes ago.
2 minutes ago. So the spirit. So I tell the other tour guide what's going on, and I'm like, she's pulling a Zach, and he's like, oh, because the paranormal community does not like him because of how he treats spirits. And next thing we know, she's getting tripped and pushed. She had like a huge cut on her leg and on her arm. And she's like, I'm going to go to the car now. And so she went in the car and waited for the other people in her group to finish the tour. And so where I go with that is, I ended up, because the other girl that she was with reached out to me. And I said to that girl, I said, well, the thing is when you go to, whether it's a cemetery or a house that's haunted or a business that's haunted, you can't do, what Zach's doing is trying to get the spirits agitated enough that they're going to do something. And if you behave like that, especially in a cemetery, they are going to do something. And you can't see what they're going to do.
You'll feel it. You will feel it.
You'll feel it, yes, because they have that power. And like Azrael was saying, or maybe it was Brent, they take and they'll take energy from like your electronics, like your cell phone. When I go to a lot of cemeteries, I'll go in and my phone will be like 90%, 100%. And I'll be walking through the cemetery and I'll be like, oh, my phone's at 0 of it. Because they're taking that energy, because they take that energy to use it to try to connect with us, whether it's for them to try to verbalize with us or like tap us on the shoulder or whatever it is. It's just like we have energy. Our energy can be high, it can be low. Like when we're sick, our energy's really low. We don't feel good, right? We want to get our energy up. So it's kind of the same thing. We just don't know how to tap into it. You want to make a comment, Azrael?
Oh yeah. I didn't even know my mic was muted. I said, oh yeah, like, oh wow, I was agreeing with you. But yeah, And the thing about it is that you have to remember, you know, um, like I stated earlier, some of them are older. Some of them are older, and they don't have the same state of conscience, or let me not call it conscience, but the idea that you are talking about. So the representation of your communication should be a lot different, especially when their words are not the same words that you're sharing. Rowan, like that cemetery that we go to, you have a lot of people that speak German and different languages, and they're not limited to those languages. There's all type of ethnicities in there, different beliefs and different backgrounds. You know, Energy recognizes energy, but if you don't know what you're communicating with, you're stirring the pot and don't even know what the consequences can arise. And that's the awareness. I learned this lesson because I've with spirits in the past, and I incorporated them in spells. Let's say just spells, and if you don't give it the specific details and using it in a sense where it's used. In other words, we're using the spirit in our spell, but the spirit feels being used, and your communication is not being worded or actually being stated. It could backfire you in so many different ways, and it's the smallest little thing. It's that communication. That's why, like in these discussions, no matter what we discuss, whether it's your tarots, talking about the book club, and tonight, with this open panel, sometimes it's good to listen to what people are sharing because the information is needed. And that's the thing about it. In a society where everything is fast paced and information travels around the world, sometimes the misinformation is more obvious than what reality is, and that's the assumption. So that's why what you're saying, Rowan. Is the communication. We have to be able to talk to them and address them because going to these places, I've seen like the mounds, the Indian mound. That we can be a threat. And we're in a different dimension than they are, but yet they can come through that veil. And there's specific moments. So it's having that awareness and the information to know what you're working with. I was watching a video here on TikTok where one person said it, or I think it might have been you, Rowan, where somebody says something, and then the next person said, "Oh, they said it. I'm going to write a book about what they said and use their words," but they incorporate their own thing. Then you get a third individual. Well, these two people said it, so let me go upon it. And that's the thing about it. Allow yourself, like you guys were mentioning earlier, even in different religious beliefs, listen to what everybody is speaking and get the clarity from all different aspects, including when we're talking about stuff like this. Listen to it, use your discernment, and understand that it's not easy peasy. It's not simple. When you delve into these things, you can actually create something that can't be broken. It's just like a spell. There's some spells out there that can never be broken. And especially with these beings, no exorcism, none of this stuff is gonna help you out there. So be aware what you're working with, and don't assume. Take hold of it, and when I say hold of it, take hold of yourself.
Yeah, and it's respect. Like, it does not always have respect. I mean, just like that's respect, gratitude, just beyond that. Like, if we go anywhere with love and respect, that will be given back to us. And sometimes it's hard if you're having a bad day and your vibration's low, but it's having that love and respect. And I know, like Bren and Azrael were talking, yeah, some of these spirits are very old, and the older the spirit is, the easier it is for them to actually communicate with us. And that's where respect comes into play. They're going to respect us. Like if we're like, I've had times where I've literally said to the spirits, I'm a little tired. Can you give me 10 minutes to rest? Because when you are working with spirits, because you have clara abilities, they can actually it's draining. I know when I'm done with tours, with cemetery and building tours, I have to decompress, and I have to meditate and get back grounded, because it takes a lot of energy from me. But I can tell you, like, it also takes a lot of energy from the spirits, especially when they're just like, oh yay, because and Bren and Azrael can, well, Azrael and I have had these discussions in person before, but when you have a Clara ability, whether you're a medium or clairsentient or clairvoyant, whatever it is, we kind of like, the spirits can tell. So it's not like you can like walk around and they're not there. They can see your spirit. They can see that you have that beautiful talent, and they're excited because they're like, okay, especially if it's like, I want you to leave flowers on my headstone, or can you help me find my loved one? Because sometimes they will reach out with little things, or they might reach out with like a message. So we do need to be open and ready. But yeah, you can be drained, but be respectful. Like, that's the biggest thing is, and I can tell you, like, because of the people I work with in the paranormal community, they all come with that aspect of, we go in, we're respectful. We'll say, does anybody want to talk to us? And some nights no one wants to talk, and it happens. It completely happens. But you don't go in and do stuff intentionally, to aggravate them. It's just like, if someone comes in your house and starts like urinating on your couch, like, what are you going to do? Right? Like, that's kind of like, if you go into a cemetery and you're doing something disrespectful, you're going to get it.
And that's like the individual that you spoke about, with the ghost box, the same way. They know, they can feel it, and they know that you're there to be a jerk, and they don't want that. They don't want that. Some people are serious, and when I say people, those that pass are very serious, and they're not there to play no games. And you have to respect. You have to. It's a must. And these lives. I'm using these lives as an example. How we take our compassion and be mindful, and we listen to one another. It's the same sense. We shouldn't be aggravating. And, if you're taking a tour in a cemetery, and be loud, and that's something that they don't want, is loudness. They don't want all that stuff. And yes, they can fill you out. They know. I've done it. I still have them. I've done a lot of spirit journals. Where I would go to the cemetery, and like you stated, Rowan, they want to be reach out to their loved ones and stuff like that, and also stuff about their loved ones that many people didn't know, and they want to share somebody with somebody, just those things, those unique things about themselves or that individual, because they could just put it out there, and once you put it in a journal, you're actually releasing them from whatever karma that they had. So I don't know if you've done that, Rowan.
Yeah, I have. And actually, it's really fascinating too. Oh, well, Iris, I was just using it as an example. I've never seen anybody do it. I've never had that experience happen. I just thought, like, I'm trying to like give an example of how we would not want to upset a spirit. It's just like, I've seen where people will be like, that's a pretty flower, and take it off of a grave. No, we don't want to do that, because that was a gift to the person, and you're literally stealing from them. It's just like, this was really fascinating. And Azrael, so we're in the hillside at Forest Home, where all the mausoleums are in that little hill.
Yes.
Okay, remember the one that's the mausoleum that's completely falling apart and the name's not there anymore?
Like, there's 4 of them or 5 grouped together.
Yes.
And then I know which ones.
Okay. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. It's the one where the person's extremely upset. Like, the energy, you can just feel it as soon as you get there. Like, it's that, don't come near me. I'm very upset. I'm angry. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. You know what? But yeah. So if you have a chance, go walk by it again. So I happen to be watching videos on people that go into Forest Home Cemetery, and somebody went to that one, and they had the little thin cameras that you can put in, and you can see this grave robbers got inside this mausoleum and have made a horrible mess. And so I literally, a week or maybe 2 weeks after I saw that video, I went out there and I actually sat with him, because I kept trying to communicate with the spirit, and he was so frustrated and angry. And especially when tour groups are going through or lots of people are there, he would get even more angry. And my friend who's a medium, he's like, I don't know why he's angry. He's having a hard time putting the words in. And I just went and I said, hey, I saw a video that somebody put a little camera in. I am so sorry. And I asked him, because he had given me numbers in the past. I didn't know what the numbers meant. Well, now I realize the numbers he was giving me was how long ago his mausoleum had been robbed. And all he wanted was somebody to just say, I'm so sorry, and to recognize that. And I'm like, I don't know that I can do anything. I said to him, other than if you'll allow me to give you some Reiki for healing. And so sometimes, and this is like great with dispelling the stereotypes of spirits. Here was a spirit that gives off this energy that can be a little frightening even if you just have a couple clear abilities. Like, I don't want to walk down that area because it's a little scary. And Azrael, you can attest. You know how angry he was. You know how frustrated he was, because it was an area. It was like, should we walk down here? But as soon as I talked to him, he's like very happy now. And he's like, oh, that's all I needed. All he needed was somebody to sit and talk to him about what had happened. And it's just like, if something happens to us, we need to have somebody just to listen and be heard. Brent, go ahead.
Yeah, because I mean, now, at least where I stand, if you do anything that is pertaining to breaking and entering, especially in a site of somebody who is laid to rest, seriously, you're going to be taking from somebody who is passed away. Now, why do you think you would want to do such a thing like that? Because one thing that I say, oh wow, I'm already starting to feel like the part of me that's like just going to say, well, when you kick the bucket, well, it looks like you won't be getting anything either, because all that's going to go back to restitution for what you took. Mm-hmm. That part had to come out. But whenever you take some kind of action on the physical world, this might scare a lot of people, but hold the wine glass. Whatever you do on the physical, the spirit on the other side is watching your every move. Especially, now this comes from because I have experience working with the goetic spirits. If you simply just call out to one of them, bring one of them in, then you overpower, dominate, force, and compel them to your liking, all the other goetic spirits are taking note of that. They're becoming aware of that. And yes, you may, in the moment, have control, and this spirit may do whatever you deem fit. Woozy woo whoopee. But all it takes is just for that spirit just to break out of that. And now, not only do you have that one spirit, now you're going to have the whole mosh pit come after you.
Yep.
And believe me, that is why I am somebody who advocates you do not need to be so shrewd and out of line to a spirit that you're inviting in. In fact, why are you inviting in a spirit that you're all, I'm going to have this protection thing around me because I already think you're going to hurt me. Well, how would you feel if you got invited to some place and all of a sudden you walk in and then people are just looking at you and they have their hands on their holsters? Like, I don't know. That would make me think, okay, what? You invited me here and this is how you're greeting me? Really? I'm going to just go then. And it sounds so minuscule, but it's like anything pertaining to working with spirit, it's like this is probably the biggest must. You have to be able to put yourself into that spirit's shoes. and see it from their perspective. And then from there, understand, okay, if I act like this to them, they may not like that. So maybe I should figure out a new way of addressing it and whatnot. And in fact, this is probably going to be a really great example. Hold on, let me play Tetris with some things real quick. Actually, I don't even know the Tetris music.
I can't remember it. That sounds awesome.
I don't even know. But anyway, so probably the best example I can muster and come up with is, hold on. That's my computer.
Dun, 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 dun,
There you
dun,
go.
dun, dun. No, I know that one. Dun 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 dun. But you know what? I wanted to share something. Brand and Rowan, and maybe you have an input because I had one experience. That one cemetery on Roosevelt where Al Capone is. So I was there once, and visiting my dad's grave because my dad is in that cemetery as well. He's on the other side, and there's a big place. So remember I was telling about journaling and the spirit journaling. Well, I had some spirit that was getting bullied by other spirits. Have you ever heard of that? Where the other spirits actually all gained up on one of the that was buried there, one of the individuals, and they were deliberately causing the dirt, the soil, the headstone to all like sink in, not quite sink into it, but like tilt over. And during the journaling, it said that to let them know that I'm not here as a threat. So I had to voice it out for that spirit that it wasn't a threat, and it was kind of a dark day, meaning it was dark and gray. But as soon as I was able to speak like that, everything seemed to become a lot more settled, if that makes any sense. But it was going on for a couple of times that I went there, and finally it did reach out to me and voice out to me that scenario that it's been there for not too long. Wow, it got real foggy where I'm at. But anyhow, so it that threw me off the fog. Anyhow, so it was telling me, yes, that the other spirits are bullying it. They're becoming bullies, and they were bullies, and they didn't accept it because of what the people that were there, when they were doing the burial, were disrespecting all the tombstones and all the headstones that were around them.
Yeah, I have heard of it. Under Bren, go ahead. I can tell you. Oh, and we'll go back to you because you were going to show you have your picture up now.
Yeah, and I'll keep that thought in mind. But actually, this can hold on because I'll be getting into that in a second. But in that kind of regard, now, to be very truthful, for me, the way that I perceive that is, well, for one thing, this is a really awkward position for me to operate from because being so close to the Norse goddess Hel, I'm like stepping into her turf, telling other passed aways what to do. And in her eyes, she looks at it like, who the fuck do you think you are, kid, telling my people what to do? Back off. Yes. But that would be something for me. I would have to just give it to her and let her do whatever she deems fit because that's her turf. And the last thing I want to do is make the wrong step. It comes back on me, and especially coming back from her, that's a no-nonsense thing. And I mean, I can also understand, like, say, if you notice like the gravesite being caved in and damaged and all that stuff, if you take the initiative to keep that site okay, then that's also one thing. You're also giving that spirit some dignity and respect. But if you're also having a situation like that even happen, well, at least for me, I have to go through a lot of getting permission of going to the cemetery, entering the cemetery, going towards a certain gravesite. At the gravesite, I ask Hell, then can I interact with the gravesite? If I get a yes, then can I speak to the person? Yeah, like all of these little check things, so fine-tuned, minuscule of all these little things I have to do. And if, like, say, to salvage like that gravesite and to take care of it or like bring it back or restore it, I have to ask her because again, it's her turf, her domain, and I don't want to just go in and not have that consideration be there. And even granted, say if she does accept, but then like say that spirit said no, nope. Because you can have a deity grant you the permission, but if the spirit itself says no, you don't touch.
Yeah.
And all it takes is just one nope, I disengage. And it sounds like so hyper over the top, but I do that for a reason. There is a reason behind it. And like I said a few moments ago, every little step that you do, it's being watched. If you're consistent in being so careful and being so considerate, the other side is going to notice that, and then they're going to see that's your regular character, and then they'll be much more open and a lot more easygoing and much more welcoming towards you because they know that you have high demeanor, high character, and you know how to interact with them and treat them as an equal. But now for this thing in the back. Now, probably, if not one of the most well-known figures in the biblical text, Queen Jezebel. Now, when we hear Jezebel, we automatically think of this. Here's probably the best stereotype example. Jezebel. She was that vile queen that put on makeup and a horror of a woman wearing makeup. What has the world come to? It's blaspheming. Oh, a queen that did all this stuff to his prophets? What? Blaspheming all over it. Hold on. We're only looking at the negative connotations that she has. Were they the most dignified actions to take? We wouldn't suggest it, but when we take a moment and really look at a completely neutral perspective, and looking at it from a perspective of a monarch, like someone that's in power, and also taking into account how the times were back when these texts were believed to be written and depicted in the time frame. When you have, for example, Queen Jezebel, number one, when she slew those prophets, the reason why behind it was not just, of course, to be an act of defiance against Yahweh's order and all that, no. But it was also in terms of defending her kingdom. Because the established religion for her in her kingdom was the religion under King Baal. And she was a devoted high priestess to King Baal. So what she was doing was also protecting her kingdom from one of the most... Okay, now, let's see if I can word this properly. The route that was happening was the kingdom was attempted to be overthrown by a means of no war. Meaning, what it was going was the prophets were coming in, converting the people to Yahweh's religion, and then that's how it was going to take over the kingdom. And that's a way you can conquer without any kind of spilling of the red juice, if you know what I mean. But that's a way of conquering. But she caught wind of it. It's like, oh, no. But then when you also take another step back and look, you notice how the way that she got to the throne wasn't the most dignified, wasn't the most blessed way of doing it, but she still got it. She still was on that throne. So we can also reason that Jezebel was a master strategist. She knew exactly how to position herself and knew how to carry herself, when to speak, when not to speak, and to also stand true to herself and enforce that. And then when we get over to the cosmetology and how, like, for example, the makeup and the attire and all that, you have to also say that she also knew one's sense of value and how that she felt in her power to express herself as she deemed fit, as any woman should. Damn it. I just had to say that.
And when you're allowed to have that strong sense of creativity and that strong sense of self, you you have this strength within you, this unshakable resolve that this is me, this is what it is, and that's it, deal with it. Oh, you don't like that I'm wearing makeup? Oh, it's okay, you can stay single. Stuff like that. Oh, I just love it when Lilith comes in. It's like, oh, well, here, let me sprinkle 2 cents in. All right, have at it. But there is also this other idea too, where, like how it is believed that she was thrown out the window and then the poochies, nommed on her, and all that was left was her hands and the top of the whatever macabre. But it even said that they could not even identify her at all from that. So that begs the question, being a strategist, very strategic, thinking many steps ahead, and being aware of the environment around her, my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think because of her having those qualities, she had a servant go in as a disguise so she could escape. But that kind of shows that when you're open to have this perspective, like, wait a minute, how come everybody is calling this woman who was just being herself and freely wearing her makeup and attire and was just so confident in her faith and also protecting her kingdom? How can we call her all these negative things if we're just focusing on that? What are the positives? And that dispels the stereotype about a spirit, and that was it in like live action. Taking the qualities as they are, and then trying to see, okay, we have a dignified way, not so good dignified way. But every spirit has those qualities. Like as, for example, Jezebel can help make your appearance and attire feel like you're being at the highest level of pristine. Operating from a state of like, this is me, I'm confident, and I attract things. But at the same time, it is using a form of appearance to deceive and woozy-woo somebody to be more compliant or be more submissive. It is what it is. It's not bad or good. It's just a talent she had. And we all have that talent. How we use it, well, that depends on you, because it's not me using it at the moment. But you see, that's how you can dispel a thing of a spirit when you're just opening the gates to both ends.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I think we also need to keep in mind, like, I also find it really fascinating, like, the stereotypes with dark goddesses. Like, people think they're all evil, and it's like, they're not evil. Like, they were human once. They made mistakes.
Mm-hmm. In fact, now that I also just so happen to be letting my dark goddess Terrell just fall out of the box, I figure probably some good examples of these dark goddesses. Well, let me just start playing 72 goddess pickup real quick. If this thing would be so kind to behave. Here's one.
Sekhmet, one of my favorite, and she's definitely
Just
through her loyalty, she became destructive, and through her loyalty, she became a healer.
Yep. Here's another one. The Queen of the Underworld, Persephone. Just because she rules the underworld alongside Hades doesn't mean she's malefic and baneful. No. Oh, here's a good one. Baba Yaga. Just because, she's old and elderly, living all by herself as a hermit, and going completely wacko, that doesn't mean nothing. If anything, doesn't that kind of make you think, wow, I want to go over there. I want to see what she's about. She's full of life, fun, keeps you on your toes. Here's another one. Scotty. Having that intense feeling of needing to do retribution, but then after the fact of having a lovely incident with Loki, playing, okay, time to play everybody's favorite game show, Pick Your Husband, by the Feet Edition. Yeah. She has her place, too. Not only does she have the dominion over the mountains and winter and sledding, but it shows that resolve of settling the score in terms of honor. That one. Here's another one. Bridget. And how she was taken and canonized into a saint.
Oh, here's another one. Santisima Muerte. That's probably another big one. Just because she has dominion over the passed away, and just because, she is the way she is, there's a reason behind it. And there's also another reason why she's so beloved. Let's see, what's another one? Oh, Cyrodiil. Just because, she, like what happened to her, and she now has that price to bear, that doesn't mean she's malefic. And just because she does making concoctions, that doesn't mean she's malefic in a stereotype. Another one, let's see. Oh, here's one. This is a big stereotype. Oh, Aphrodite, love, beauty, all that gorgeous stuff, love. How about some, envy? How about some, like, Persephone? If you're not going to let me have some time with Adonis, then nobody's going to get love. Nobody has love now. Aphrodite? What, Zeus? We have a problem. Oh, you think I care? I don't care. It's just between me and Hera. Yeah, there's no love there. Well, I want some time with Adonis. That's it. You give me that, then I'll give you your love back. Okay, Persephone, you're gonna have to split it evenly with her. Fine. That is, well, we think Aphrodite's all love and all that stuff, but talk about throwing a temper tantrum for just... Oh. Man, yeah. Here's a Ma Kali. Just because she's dark, just because she is wearing ornaments of bones and stuff like that, that doesn't mean she's malefic. Does it hurt when you go towards her and spend time with her? Ooh, yeah, but there's a reason behind it. Oh, here's one. Nemesis. You hear the name Nemesis, you think, my arch nemesis? Well, because Nemesis don't care. She doesn't care. Everything is now on an equal playing field. She doesn't care if you're higher, lower. Everybody's now smack in the middle. Let's see, what's another one? Probably the most well-known, Hecate. Just because she's a goddess of witchcraft and does stuff that pertain to the underworld, doesn't mean she's baneful. No. Let's see, what's another one? Oh, Mama Bridget. Just because she's voodoo, that doesn't mean she's malefic. Damn it, Hollywood. Oh, best example. Hell. Just because her name is missing another L, doesn't mean that she has any affiliation with that. Furthermore, a lot of people don't know this one. In one of the older, bastardized texts that does mention some of the Norse, it is mentioned that when Saturnus fell into the underworld, hell, he tried taking over her domain of Helheim. Yep, that hell. Saturnus tried taking over it, and she said, "Who the f do you think you are trying to take over my place? Get the out of here!" And he bolted out of there. But that goes to show that when you have a dark goddess, like for Hel, for example, she's not at all well, she does say things which can be a bit right to the gut, but it's done because it has to be said. You have to be served it and then face it, so that way you can give it the time it needs to then incorporate it and move forward from it. But at the same time, of all the underworld beings that I know of, Hel is probably, if not one of the most hyper protective out of all of them when it comes to the passed away. Like, she will, best said to not misstep that one. Here's one that's classic, but I gotta cover it. Lilith, classic. Oh, well, she said no to Yahweh and said, "Oh, I'm not gonna submit to him. Oh, she's evil and profane." Well, what would you do if you were in her situation and you were trying to be forced to lay with somebody that you weren't feeling it with? Minor detail. But yeah, those are some examples.
And that's always really good, because that, like, even for those of us in the pagan community, that helps, because I know when I was looking for a specific book on Hecate, and I was in one of the witchcraft shops, and I heard these young girls, and they were like, oh, she's a black witch, she works with Hecate. And it's like, oh my gosh, no. Like, first off, I don't believe in black and white magic, but what, because you work with a certain deity, like you're like stay away from that person? Like it no. We all have good and bad. It's just a matter of how we use it. And that works with spirits, it works with deities.
Like, oh Lord Atlantis, she works with Hecate? Yeah, what's your problem? Well, she's dark. That's the point. Why, what, are you afraid of the dark? Or even, heck, my personal favorite. You work with Nyx? Isn't she like the goddess of the darkness and all that? Yeah. But she also has dominion over things that go bump in the night. That's the point. What are you trying to get at? You're afraid of the dark? It's okay. It's a common fear. But if you just get rid of it and just really embrace it and just be in tune with it, you'll be finding out, oh, this is peaceful. Instead of like, I got a feeling something's going to come out of the dark in any given second. I got to look around all over the place. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that rate.
Yeah. Yes. Azrael, anything to add? I think we lost Azrael.
Ah, hamburger helper.
Or maybe he's eating right now and we caught him like mid-bite. Which I think we have done before. So I want to thank everybody for the hearts. If we could get a couple more hearts and like the video, that helps so that everybody knows that we're found. I'd love to like jump up in the rating. And we need hearts for that. And I do want to thank everybody for the gifts. Always appreciated, never expected. So we do really, really appreciate everybody who has donated tonight. We are talking about dispelling the stereotypes of spirits. And I hope that like everybody can go a little more open-minded, especially if like it's something that you've been afraid of. And you don't have to work with spirits. I mean, you really don't, but understand that they're not evil. They were people too.
Yep. And probably, well, in fact, that kind of gives me an idea to give, like, let's see here. How am I gonna serve this? Let's see here. You can have two kinds of situations happen when it comes to spirits or divinities or what have you. You can have the collective viewpoint, or you can have the individual. Both of them. So, how do you know which one is going to be more effective for you? Well, number one, the collective one, meh with it. Meh with it. Unless if you've interacted with that spirit on your own individual self, you don't have any say to say if a spirit is good or bad. You don't. That goes for everybody. Because how do you know if this spirit is going to be baneful or malicious towards you, only you, and not somebody else, or a collective of people? How do you know? You never interact with them. But if you interact with a spirit and it's personal, then you can say for your account what has happened to you and only you. That way, you're now coming from a space where you're not being polluted by the collective's viewpoint. Because if you're not going from the collective viewpoint and from the personal, it's a lot more authentic. And the more authentic it is, the more better it is.
Yes. I think the most important thing, the most important message, I mean, for me personally with this topic is to be open-minded. I know it can be really hard because there are times my husband catches me and he's like, you're not even listening to all sides. And he's like, you're usually good at that, but sometimes we don't, but listen to all sides and be willing to listen to all sides. Bren, I can tell you want to say something else.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking because like what I also have this perspective of, you can have, like say for an example, you can have a connection with like say Our Lady, just fine. But when it comes to like Archangel Miguel, me personally, I'm not really fond of him that much. Because point being, Miguel, why did you have to do that to that girl, make her the Animasola? Why did you not have self-control? Why did you inspire her? Why did you have to do that? So now, but at the same time, me having that same dignity and respect towards Our Lady, of course, again, I'm just calling her that because that's her title. There's a fine difference, but having that reverence to that extent of respect for my own personal experience, yes. But now, say if I go towards, say, something that is not of that, and say, like I have a close connection with, say, number 71, Duke Dantalion, of course, the one that was on the High Priestess card 2 days ago. That deep connection, but at the same time, I don't jive really that well with, which spirit is that one? There is one spirit that is about, I'm trying to remember its name. It'll come back to me, but it's essential. Oh wait, it is, crap, I completely forgot its name. Oh, crap, I'm looking right at you. Crud, what is your name? Zozo. Oh, no. No. But that's from my personal experience. Being in a situation where it's like, oh, hi, Zozo. I know you're trying to hold my hand. Let go of it. Things like that. But that's from my experience. Or no, somebody might use a board and they encounter Zozo and it turns out to be something great for them. They have their composure, they're functioning just fine, and they have a good connection with it. Whoop-de-woo. But for me, nope. So that's why from the self, it is important to always see what you resonate towards and what you feel affiliated with and what feels right. Not going off what hanky, panky, spanky, wanky, danky, and anky everybody else says. Because unless if you have experienced it yourself, how do you not know you might be inhibiting yourself from a connection that's spiritual that might be probably the best thing ever until you do it.
Yeah, and that's true because like us, the human species, like all of us here, as examples, our interaction with each other is different than the next person. So how we interact with here in this room with us here specifically, will interact with another group in a different aspects. And yet here we could be all love and everything, and in another room everybody treats us like crap. You know what I'm saying? So it depends where we're at. And the same thing with the spirits. We might have a different experience as the next individual. How many people in my life have told me one thing or another? Like, everybody loves you over here, but there's just this one person that hates me. And I don't know why that person hates me. And it's always been like that, So that makes sense, Brent, what you're saying.
Yes, it totally does. And that is important. And you can actually even be with somebody and their experience will be completely different. How we accept things and how we interpret things can be different than somebody else. And so it can be the same way with spirits too. I mean, because again, they were human, they had a body. So at least that's what most spiritual belief paths do believe. I do believe that. But yes, we have to, I feel like we have to be open-minded and we have to be respectful when we're working with spirits. Really important to be able to do that. And it's okay. Like, I know, like Robert the doll, I'll bring him up. I don't want to go near him. I don't know if you guys would ever want to go near that doll. I don't want to. And I know I did watch the Zach Baggins special where he was like holding the doll and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that guy, like, yeah, I would not do that. I don't know. Brand, I know. Yeah, I mean, just fascinating, like, so some haunted things are fascinating and you got to think about it. Like his nanny, she probably practiced hoodoo or voodoo or, she practiced one of those and it is what it is, but it's like, ooh. So,
I was just thinking, Brett. Rowan, that how we talk about items, physical items that can be possessed, with spirits and stuff like that. And then it started to dawn to me, as you were speaking, and you were painting the image, I was getting a download because a couple of years ago I bought this unique thing. It was a wood carving I from the resale store, down here, and for a week or two things just didn't seem right, like off, and I said, you know what? I know it's that head, because it was like a head, and I got rid of it. As soon as I got rid of it, it actually, it started to make more sense. In other words, everything around me became a lot more balanced. The house was not chaotic like it was. And then I was thinking to myself, you know what? Us as species, human beings, when we attach ourselves, let's say, we love something specifically, like a book. Oh, and then we're overzealous and over, with that book, and we lose the book, and then yet that attachment is still with that book. I believe, maybe that's how some of these items can also be possessed by us being so attached to something that we cling on to these material things. And maybe some of these possessed items are the same sense. Somebody held them so dearly, and, where Brent mentioned something earlier about the opening up a tomb or grave, that grave robber, like you were talking, Rowan, with the grave, and then Brent brought it up. It's the same scenario. You might be, this is all I got. We're not supposed to carry anything with us after we go, we unalive. But yet maybe that individual was gifted something that never was ever received by anybody else, and that spirit attached himself to that because it meant so much to that thing, and that's the awareness too, that when we're going into these meets, and I'm talking about like the shows that you do, Rowan, where you're able to set shop, you sell your stones and everything, and sometimes the individuals might sell used stuff, like and something that has nothing to do with the present. It's something older, and we don't know where it comes from. So you have to use that discernment too when you're dealing with stuff like that. Secondhand books and so forth.
Yeah, you really do. And actually, it's also like, as you bring that up, like I was showing my husband a couple of treasured items that I have that are very old. And he's like, "Oh, I always thought that was ugly," one of the items. And it was my grandmother's pincushion, and it's from Germany. Very, very old. Oh, well over 100 years old. It was my great grandmother, not my grandmother, but my great grandmother's. And I told him this story, and he goes, "Oh, that like is really special then," because she left Germany with 2 items that weren't clothing. And I have one of them. One of them is her pincushion. The other was her cuckoo clock. And I don't know who ended up with her cuckoo clock. I have a cuckoo clock from Germany because she always had her cuckoo clock. So it but I don't have hers. And I'm like, considering how many grandchildren and children and grandchildren and great grandchildren she has, I'm pretty lucky that I have this, and it is my special connection to her. And so we get that with family heirlooms too. I know, like my family altar, I have my grandpa's driver's license on it. That's like, he loved driving. Just absolutely love driving. And so like, that's like a connection I have with him, is like, I've got his driver's license and I have one of his fish hooks, those are special connections. And so also, like, when we buy something, yes, it might, like, a family member may be like, why did my relative give this away? That could even be like part of the thing. You need to take it back to them. But, cause like yeah, we do have like things that are very precious to us that we may be attached to. Like, if you can think of, like, if somebody said you can only take one possession in your house, what would it be? That item you're probably attached to and don't realize it. And if it gets sold at a secondhand store, yeah, that you might be hunting somebody. That was a great thought. Oh, and Brent got a call. Okay. Yeah, Azrael, that was, and I've actually picked up items in Goodwill and the Salvation Army, and I put them right back because I can feel those attachments to them. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to take this home. So.
Well, and I have that sense too, where I could feel it, but there was just something so unique about This one, it was something like a tribal of I don't know head busk. That's what you call it, head busk, and it was kind of tribal, and it looked like it was hand carved, and it's very unique. I looked at it both being a relic and secondary. Monetarily is probably worth a lot of money because somebody handcrafted it. But there was just something off, especially in the atmosphere at home. I just didn't feel the same. Like I felt, as a matter of fact, I think that was when I visioned a couple dark entities, or it might have just been one. But as soon as I got rid of it, I removed it. As a matter of fact, I didn't even throw it away. I actually put it in plain sight where somebody else could take it, because I know we're not supposed to destroy it. So and I just let it be. If somebody picked it up, that's on them. That's not me, because I guess that's the way you're supposed to do it. Not being a bad person, but I think that's the way you're supposed to do it. Is you're not supposed to trash it. You're supposed to let it and let somebody else pick it up.
Yeah. One of my clients, they bought a house, and in the wine cellar, the guy had collected, when he would drink his wine bottles, he would save them, like the empty ones. And he had a couple of very old wine bottles, but he wasn't a very happy spirit. And he was connected to the wine bottles to the house. And my client's like, what do I do? I'm like, well, you need to get rid of them. She's like, throw them away. I'm like, no, don't throw them away. I'm like, take them maybe to Goodwill or Salvation Army or something. And she did. And the whole atmosphere in the house completely changed. And it does happen. Yeah, there's, and we're probably connected to things that we'll figure it out when it's our time, especially if a loved one gets rid of something. And I'm sure that's that happens a lot, I'm sure.
Sense because even in stories, when we're talking about movies and stuff like that, a lot of these movies are based on real life events. And when like that pin that you have from your grandmother or your great grandmother, it's sentimental. It might not have value where it's priceless or whatever, but there's sentiments in there. It's something that meant something to someone. So because it means something to them, it actually is like a miniature portal to actually their essence and who they are. Their energy is still attached to that. Although the figure is not there 100%, as a human, but their essence, their energy, or even just a small, what do you call it, residual. That energy residual remains with it, and memory. If there's residual, it obtains memory.
Yes. And it's, and it works. Like when people ask me, they're like, I want to pay tribute to my ancestors. I want to connect to them and communicate, especially if it's a grandparent that passed that they were close to, or, even a parent. And, I've learned this through doing it myself, but also through my teachers and mentors. And even a picture, even if they didn't own the picture, but just a picture of them, and you call it your family altar. Even if you have a picture on the wall, that too, that's a connection. That's a way for them to connect to you. So if you're like, oh, I don't have a family heirloom, I wish I had something for my grandmother or my grandfather or my great grandparents or so on. You don't necessarily have to have an item. All you need is a picture, but it is more precious if it is something, like I count myself very, very fortunate to have an item that was, she was leaving. She could only take a suitcase, which was full of clothing and 2 personal items, this pin cushion and a cuckoo clock. And, to actually have, that was one of the 2 items that when she left her home and immigrated to the United States, that was something important for her to take. So yeah, there's a big connection, and we can have those connections. And I've had so many people tell me about items that they're like, it was so pretty when I bought it at the secondhand store, but then when I brought it home and, weird things started to happen. And you never know. I mean, it could have been the one item that somebody put in their suitcase when they left England or Poland or Sweden?
I don't have anything, anything of such as that, like any family heirlooms or anything that I can recall. As a matter of fact, the other day I was actually curious. I was curious because there's stuff I want to share, but not, we can't share around here because it's a different topic. But like beans. And when I used to go to my grandmother's, I think you might have heard me on another live talk about a specific being that I was able to visit for like 4 years consistent. And I was curious, and I said, you know what? I don't remember the address or wherever my grandmother lived at, but I have an idea. So I remember as a child, um, I don't even know the story even goes along what we're talking about. But anyways, it's a relic. It's a relic because it's a memory. Let's call it a memory. And I remember that my grandfather passed prior, this one specific year, and he was buried not so far away from my grandmother's house. So I went to town with my grandmother one time, and as soon as we passed the cemetery, his headstone is right there close to the street, one of the main roads. So I looked at the town, and in that town, there's only one cemetery with three, plots, like areas, like right here, right there, and the third one divided by streets. And sure enough, I found the town. I found the location of my grandmom's house. I was able to find my grandmother's house on the GPS satellite, the satellite GPS and everything. And then I'm thinking to myself, you know what? There was so much stuff there as a child that my grandmother had because she was third generation in that home, and she had the main house, and she had a guest house where my cousins used to stay there. Well, my cousins, they no longer lived there. They moved to a different state of New York, and they left a lot of their stuff there, like toys and many things. Well, my grandmother, had another son, which was, my uncle, and he was kind of a dark guy, and I say dark, he had spirits with him, because he did some terrible things, and I recall that after his things, he was in a newspaper and so forth. One individual, because the individual ate him. He was SA as a child by the individual, and as they grew older and older, he took the opportunity and the rage and actually unalived him for what happened. Well, he left a lot of stuff behind too. And when my grandmother passed, the home was sold, and a lot of that stuff was given away to individuals. And and that's what I was thinking. Like when I mentioned earlier, can it be possible, like energy, like that dark energy of that, my uncle being who he was, and somebody else picking it up, they can take that energy along with them and not even know it.
Yes. Well,
Scary.
yeah,
It's
okay,
scary.
so here's one. Here's one with a spirit. So, it's a Nazi spirit, and it had a spirit attachment. So a spirit had spirit attachments. The spirit attachments are upset people who he unalived during World War II. So
Wow.
before he had passed, the upset people that he unalived, and we know how bad World War II was in Germany, and especially since this guy was a Nazi.
Mhm.
They attached to him, so I'm sure the tail end of his life was probably pretty miserable because the attachments were very angry. But like here you have now you have this angry spirit.
Do it. Hold on. Let me stop you because that's another word we can't say here. So
Oh,
you might have to
thank you.
say, yeah, you're gonna have to say Yahtzee or something.
Okay, so we'll say during Germany's World War II, a German soldier. There we go.
Yeah, so you have to use that,
Thank you.
because
I was wondering because like it's not often that we even talk about that. Thank you, Azrael. Because I know like they almost need to send creators like a list of words we can't use. So yeah, so because he did so many horrible things during World War II in Germany at the camps that were in Germany, he's got his angry victims. And that was a very interesting experience. I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole experience, but that can happen. So, because we've been kind of talking about those little attachments that you can get. So it's not just to people, but spirits can get attachments from other spirits. Yes, yes, yes. So anybody in the comments have questions or comments? I know we are talking about dispelling stereotypes with spirits. So we've kind of been all over the place. Most important, I would say, is definitely be open-minded, be respectful, just like you would with a human, because spirits were human and now they're just in the spirit realm. I don't see any questions. Anything else you want to add, Azrael?
my phone in my pocket, and I'm actually parked. Just made it home right now, but I'm next to where I live by. I'm next to a cemetery, and I actually, as we're talking about this, I scratched my finger, and I know my nail's not that freaking sharp, and I think I just got not a warning, but like a knowledge, that acknowledgement, and that's what many of them, they pass away with no identity, meaning a lot of people don't even know they are, because there's people that are they pass as John Doe's or Jane Doe, and they're not remembered because nobody cared about them, whether their family and their siblings passed to the last one of their generation or their story. There's a whole lot to think about it, and like you said, these parasitic, uh, like parasites, spirits. They don't mean harm, but they never had that identity to even know who they were. And I think that's something that we should delve into maybe somewhere in the future, not right now, but maybe a couple months when you need an idea. Let's talk about parasitic uh, spirits. Just like there's a parasite, and how uh, the possession of physical, the spiritual can also be possessed,
Yeah.
and they might not be possessed because of ill intents, but because they want to find who they are, their identity. Wow, that makes a good plot for a movie.
Right, right. And boy, we can talk about it because I don't know if you went by. I mean, it would be the Potter's Field there. Right now, they've got it covered with a mound of dirt at the cemetery, where all the people who were victims of the smallpox epidemic that took place in Chicago. And the energy there, in the daytime, it's strong and it's hard to walk by. It's very sad, but at night, ooh, it's very heavy, very hard to walk by. I want to thank everybody for all the hearts. Thank you so much. We're just going to wrap up because I don't think Bren's coming back. I think he's done for the night. But anything else you want to add, Azrael, before we end for the night?
No, Rowan, just like yourself, I know you had a long day, and I'm exhausted. I'm just making it home. Partially throughout the day, my AC in the work truck wasn't working, so it was hot. It was kicking my butt. Yeah, and when I get home right now, I just turn on the AC. It takes a few minutes, but it becomes like an ice box, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's
I'm
why
looking forward. Yeah.
the basement's a lot cooler, but like these really hot days, like because my husband works outside too, so he comes home and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get cold if I go in the basement. I'm grabbing my sweatshirt. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I am sometimes. But no, Rowan, I thank you for hosting, and holding the space. Um, and for everything that you were able to contribute tonight. And I appreciate you. Much love and gratitude.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
hope you have I hope you have a safe holiday weekend too. In case we don't talk.
Yeah, yes. So to everybody out there, have a safe holiday weekend if you're in the States. I am going to show up the book. So Spiral Dance by Starhawk. We are doing good. I did remember chapter 5 on the goddess this Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is really talking about the rebirth of the goddess religion and bringing the goddess back into your practice. So it's a really great book. Please feel free to jump in and join. And if you haven't joined the other discussions, they are posting on my Patreon and on my YouTube channel. There are replays of all my lives will be on YouTube and Patreon. And if you want to find that, just make sure you're following me and go to my bio, and there's a bio link there that will take you where you need to go. And please make sure you follow Azriel. Always important for us to build this beautiful spiritual community. So, all right. Any goodbye you want to say, Azriel? Any special goodbye?
Oh, not at the moment. I'm tired. But I see Tina. You know what? Tina was in our area. I actually met her. I think it was Monday. Might have been Monday night or Tuesday. I'm not sure 100%, but it was Monday. And she stopped by for for a little while on her way to where she needed to go. So I just want to say hello. Hello to her.
That's awesome. That's so cool. It is cool when you meet people from online. So that's really awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody again. Thank you again for all of the hearts. And we'll be here Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, merry meet, merry part, bright blessings, and namaste.
Namaste.